Welcome back to our podcast, Let's Talk About Labor. This podcast aims to help farmers and ag businesses connect with other ag businesses in Tennessee and other surrounding states, specifically to hear and learn about their experiences and challenges related to labor and the strategies they have used to overcome these challenges. We talk about various topics such as the U.S. temporary foreign visa programs, mechanization and automation, and worker recruitment and retention strategies, among other topics. Different agencies and organizations have partnered with us to make this podcast possible, including the Southern Risk Management Education Center, GAP Connections, the U.S. Department of Agriculture SCRI program, and the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. My name is Margarita Velandia, and I'm a professor in the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics at the University of Tennessee. Amy?
My name is Amy Fulcher, and I'm a professor in the Department of Plant Sciences at the University of Tennessee.
Anthony?
I'm Anthony LeBude. I'm an associate professor and nursery extension specialist at NC State University.
Well, so we'd like to introduce our guest for today's episode, Bill Jones, president of Carolina Native Nursery in Burnsville, North Carolina. Welcome, Bill, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm happy to be here talking with you guys.
Thanks, Bill. Today, we are going to talk about the potting machine that you recently purchased. And I'd like you to talk about the decision-making process and how perhaps the events in the last 10 years might have led you to decide to get one and how it might have helped you. Also, your thought process before and after you've adopted it, and evaluation of any investment cost and potential savings that you've seen based on some data that you have before and after adopting
Okay.
it.
That's a lot. So, I was certainly familiar. I'd been to larger nurseries that had some automated equipment, and we were able to pot by hand, and we were doing a pretty good job and things like that. But around 2018, 2019, our growth rate started to pick up dramatically. And why that was, that's maybe something we can have on another podcast. But we came to the conclusion two things. Number one, we were going to cover all the ground that we had here currently. And number two, if we wanted to expand to be able to fit the needs of the market for native plants, it was going to be incumbent upon us to find some more land and then automate, because only through automation we were going to be able to put enough plants on the ground in the springtime appropriately to to warrant buying more land. So, that was sort of the crux of our problem, and we decided to go for it. So our first decision was to be able to, if we could find land that was adjacent to our current nursery, because we did not want to have two separate locations and then figure out the logistics from that. I know bigger nurseries do it, but that was something I wasn't interested in. So when we were able to secure some land next to us to double our footprint and also get right of first refusal on much more land that was adjacent to that, we decided to go ahead and explore automation. And we knew that it was going to take us another year to do that. So what we did was we traveled around and looked at other people's automation equipment. We, of course, saw people at trade shows, but it is what it is there. So, I mean, Anthony, you remember we went to Panoramic Farms. I went to Tennessee and looked at some equipment. I went to an automation day at Cultivate and looked at some machinery there, just to sort of get a feel for the size of equipment people had, what their problems were, but mainly see the equipment in action. So after months of reviewing the equipment, we found the right machine. We built a building to fit that equipment specifically, and we installed the machine. So the whole process between making the decision, buying the land, building the appropriate shed to put it in, and buying the equipment was really a 3-year process. So what we were looking for more than anything else was production speed. And what we've discovered, I mean, we knew what our rates were prior to that with a crew of 6 or 7 people. We'll just use an example of 1 gallon plants. By the time we prepped them and, filled the pot by hand, planted the plants, put the fertilizer on them, put the rice hulls on them, put them on the trailers and carted them out to the field to put them down, we were averaging a little bit over 200 pots an hour, which it was what there was nothing we could have done to make that any faster. So just for 1 gallons, for instance, when we're running our machine with 6 or 7 people, many of the same people that we had when we were doing things by hand, we're doing about 1,600 plants per hour. At full tilt. And I think we could do much better than that. That includes putting them out in the field and all that. If we need to step it up and had a crew in the field putting the plants down and getting them all through the water tunnel and everything else, we could do much better than that too. So the cost of the machine with the amount of work we're getting done and the fact that our employees are much happier doing it with the machinery versus by hand is a huge plus. And one of the surprises that we had there was the finish time on our plant. So the planting itself is much more uniform. We can control the depth of the planting with the augers on the machine. They're all perfectly in the center of every pot. We've taken, depending on the species, on our perennials, 1 or 2 weeks off a production swing. We do 3 rounds of perennials annually. I think we can do 4 now. And with shrubs, depending on the species, we've taken 4 to 6 to 8 weeks off of a finish time. So it's much quicker in putting the plants out. Plus, because of the uniformity and the planting depths and all that we can control, we're getting a much better quality plant from the get-go. So, that I don't know if that covered all those things that you asked us, but that's where we are.
Yeah, that was excellent. That definitely covered them. Thank you.
Bill, you mentioned some of the benefits that you have enjoyed since getting the potting machine. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you all experienced, if any, when you adopted the potting machine and the strategies that you used to overcome those challenges?
Sure, I'd be happy to, Amy. One of the problems when you buy a piece of equipment like that, it's if you run tractors and you buy a new tractor, it's still a tractor. But when you buy a piece of automation equipment, you've got to learn the ins and outs of that specific piece of equipment. And one of the mistakes that we made, we installed this equipment in October, but we didn't need to use it till February. So it would have been we should have made those guys come out here and be with us the first couple of days that we ran pots, because we learned a lot on adjustments and how everything works and all that. So that was a big challenge. One of the challenge on our specific equipment is there's an automatic pot feeder, and not all the pots are going to work in that. So it took us a while to figure out which pots were going to be most efficient in the pot feeder, because that takes not having to feed the pots by hand basically takes a whole person off the line, one
Yeah.
less person that we have to use. So that was big for us. And one of the other challenges is finding somebody to run the equipment. Period. We were fortunate that we had a young man on staff that had run brewery equipment, so he knew some of the pitfalls of automation. So he was very adept at learning that machine quickly. We run a very clean operation, so we clean our equipment every other week on a Friday. We take everything out of it and make sure that it's pretty much spotless before we start again. we're uh, let me see. Well, I made a couple of the notes. We've we've made our actions around using the machinery very lean. So all our employees, when we're on, they're not reaching and walking around looking for things. When we have our setup is very tight, so our potter people that plant the plants have everything at their fingertips. We hand fertilize, but they have all that at their fingertips too. So we're not running around. We're all set up and ready to go when we turn the machine on, and everybody's attention is focused, getting ready to go. Because once you flip that thing on, it is go time. Yeah, so that the challenges, the pots, keeping the machine maintained and greased and cleaned and all that so it works every time the same way, and making sure all your employees are set up with everything they need to be successful when it's go time. So those are the main challenges that we had to face.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Excellent, Bill. So it seems like you already talked a little bit about some of the lessons you learned, like anticipating that you purchased the machine in September, but you wouldn't use it until February. So you would probably have done that differently, like bringing the guys on board, training
Yep.
them, anticipating maybe that you don't need an extra guy on the line. How do you reallocate that labor? So you have talked to us a little bit about things you have learned and things you would have done differently. But let's end this episode by you, if you could give a recommendation to a nursery thinking about adopting the potting machine or purchasing the potting machine, what recommendation will you give to that nursery operation?
Well, first of all, travel around and look at other people's equipment and what they're doing. If they're if you do 1 gallons and 3 gallons, are they doing those things too? Are you doing bare root? The things that you do, find people that are using machinery and potting up the same sizes and sources that you are from the get-go. And just take a whole day, stand there and watch how they work and see if it's something that you think you can do. And just take your time. Don't be in a big hurry, realizing that when you order that machinery, it's going to be 9 to 12 months before it's delivered and installed. So just don't be in a hurry to make sure that you look at the equipment and find the equipment that's going to fit your needs, and not try to take a piece of equipment that's not going to fit your needs and adjust it accordingly. I think there's enough variation out there that you could have luck in doing that.
Excellent, Bill. This has been a wonderful conversation. I cannot thank you enough for actually taking the time to talk with us to share your experience with the potting machine. And I guess I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.